Hello and welcome to Code with John. This is a channel where we deal with everything data. Now we are going to learn data analysis with Python. The IDE that we are going to use is Jupyter Notebooks. Jupyter Notebooks opens on a web browser. Jupyter Notebooks is very popular with data analysts and data scientists. When you fire up your Jupyter Notebook, this is the interface that you will get. Now you start a new Jupyter Notebook file with the IPy Python 3 kernel. Then you can name your file from here. Intro to Python. It's going to save it as an IPNB file. When you come here, here it is, IPYNB file. Now Jupyter Notebooks has some cells in it where you can write your code, like the first Python programming code, print hello world. When you run the code, it's going to print it here. Now these cells are of different types. As you can see from here, the cell type, you can have the code which we have actually chosen Python 3 code. You can have the markdown. The markdown, you can write your markdown files, and you have the raw files and convert files. Now you may want to explain your code or make your code more readable. Now this is what you do. You use Python comments to achieve this. Like, this is how you're going to do it. You start with a hash. This is my first program. Now you have explained what this program entails. This is your first program, so this is a Python comment. The comments are used to explain your Python code or make your code more readable, or sometimes to prevent execution of your code when you're testing code. Like if I do this, it won't be printed on the screen, but if I remove the comment, then the program will run. In data analysis, we deal with data. Now, I can input data here, like 2, 3, 4. Now this data has been printed out as 2, 3, 4, but I cannot use this data further than printing it out on the screen. Now if I want to utilize this data, there is something called Python variables. Now a variable is a container for data values. Like I can input this data value onto a container, and that container is called a variable. Like x equals 2, y equals 3, z equals 4. Now this is called a variable, which is a container for data value. Now this is the value of this variable. Now if I print variable y, the value for this variable y is 3. you can assign a name to this variable, to these variables, so that you can access them later into your program. And there are rules governing assignment of variables. Python variables can only begin with a letter A to Z, all caps, A to Z, small caps, or an underscore. You can only begin a variable with A to Z caps, A to Z small caps, or an underscore. For example, color. This variable only becomes active when you assign a value to it. Green. Sorry, Python is case sensitive, so color with a small letter and color with a capital letter are two different variables. So let's say print green. As you can see, Python is case sensitive, so color and color are two different variables. You can see color is not defined. Now the rest of this variable, color, this is called an identifier. Let's say color to red. Now in this variable, these characters, they're called identifiers. Now in this identifier, you can only have letters A to Z, which caps, or letter A to Z small caps, underscores, and numbers 0 to 9, and nothing else. So for example, we can write color tree green. Or another example, color to tree purple. Now these are called the identifiers. You can only have letters A to Z, small caps or caps, digits 0 to 9, or an underscore. No special characters. As you create your variables, Python will assign a data type to this variable automatically. Now, data types are the classification or categorization of data items. Like this data item has a data type in Python. You remember we did X on top here. This data, this value is a data item, and even here these values are data items. Now for us to check the data type of each and every variable, there's an inbuilt function called type. So let's see what Python has assigned to our variable X. It's an integer. What about our variable color tree? It's a string. Now, what are data types? Data types, as we said earlier, are the classification or categorization of data items. Data types represent the kind of value that tells what operations can be performed on a particular data. Now, these are examples of data types as a data analyst you need to know in Python programming. These are the data types. You have numeric, where numeric you have integer, denoted as int. We have complex numbers, we have float, we have dictionary, we have boolean, we have set, we have sequence data types, which is string, list, and tuple. We are going to look at them in depth shortly. Data types, we've said, are the classification or categorizations of data items. Now, the data types represent the kind of value that tells what operations can be performed on a particular data. Data types. We've seen these numeric data types. We assigned x the value of 2, and we check this value, and we saw it's an integer. An integer is a numeric data type. A numeric data type represents data that has a numeric value. Now, integer contains positive or negative values, whole numbers, without fraction or decimals. Like x equals 2, we can have a negative value. Now this is an integer, negative 2. When you print the value of x, we get to see it's an integer. Now we have another data value called a float. Let's say y equals to 2.5. Now this is a float. Python has assigned this value as a float. Now what is a float? A float number is a real number with a floating point representation. It is specified by a decimal point, this one 2.5. Now there's another numeric data type called a complex number. Let's say z equals to 2 plus 3j. Automatically, Python has assigned this data type as complex. Now, a complex number is where we have a real numbers and an imaginary number. Like 2, this is a real number, plus 3, this is a real number, this is an imaginary number, j. Now we have another data type called a string. Strings are arrays of bytes representing Unicode characters. A string is a collection of one or more characters put in a single quote, double quote, or triple quote. For example, color, green. Now this is a string denoted by str. This is a string. You can also write color, a string like this. These are single quotes. Now these are double quotes, blue. And you can write a multi-line with a triple quote. As you can see, this is a multi-line string type. denoted by str. Now let's look at Boolean data type. These are data types with one of the two built-in values, true or false. This is a Boolean value denoted by bool. As you can see, it's of class bool, denoting Boolean. A good example is 3 equals to 2. Sorry about that. 3 same as 2, that's false. And is 3 same as 3, true. This is an example of a Boolean implementation. We will further look at other data types like lists, sets, dictionaries later as we continue this journey of Python with data science. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for listening to me. Like and subscribe and share. May you be blessed.